Hi everybody, and welcome back to The Purpose Cooker. I'm Lexi.
And I'm Erica.
And today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks on how to read the Bible. Okay? So for me, just a little short story of how I started reading the Bible to understand it versus just reading it just for leisure. What I would do is read the Bible and I wouldn't understand what exactly it meant. I didn't understand how it was a living Bible. I knew all the stories. I knew everybody told me it was real, but I didn't know how it literally applied to my life today. Mm-hmm. So what I would have to do that helped me, which is kind of like tip number one, and I don't think we're going to list it out, but just a tip that helps me, was praying. Praying to God that he would give you the wisdom and knowledge to understand what he was talking about in the Bible, because it was so many parables, it was so many like metaphors and similes, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't understand what you're talking about or how this is relevant, like how does this apply to me? And so I would pray to God and I'd be like, please, like, make this a living word in my life. I really want to understand why you're writing this, and I really want to see what people mean when they say this is a living word. I want to see the miracle. I want to see everything that you're talking about today. And so when I would pray to God before reading it with all my heart, like it wasn't just because, like when I would pray with all my heart to understand, the Holy Spirit would literally illuminate the words in the Bible and I would understand what it meant, and I would connect the things that were happening, like either at work, with friendships, relationships, whatever the case is. I would be able to connect it with the stories and see how it applied today as it did back then. So that's one of the things that helps me is prayer before reading.
Yeah. I would say, the same thing. I honestly, to be quite honest, prior to me really diving into the word, I don't think I ever really tried. Like for me, I'd never really just sat and tried. And then also I didn't have like a good translation. Like, so I might have been trying to read out of like, I don't know, my memory of trying to read the Bible, I would always just think back to like, New King James Version. Even though I wasn't ever reading those versions, that's in my head, I just automatically assumed that every Bible is going to sound like that. Like I just wasn't really going to understand what it meant. And so for me, I started reading out of, I think it's the Living Translation. Is it Living Translation? Is that which one?
NLT, New Living Translation.
Yeah, New Living Translation.
NLT.
Yeah. That's the one that I started reading out of, and I was like, okay, this is kind of making sense. And like Lexi said, I would just pray, and honestly, I just had a positive attitude. I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to attempt to read and see what happens. And I would just read, and for me also, I like understanding things from a contextual standpoint. So I would try to understand like the settings in which different books of the Bible were set. I would try to do like background, like understanding, like, okay, well, what time frame was this? What region? Those things helped make a connection for me in understanding different scriptures and understanding like the context of what was being said. So when I would hear certain things, I wouldn't be like, like, what are they talking about? Like, is this literally? Is this figuratively? I just had a better understanding. So for resources, I would say like this Bible right here. This is a great Bible. You guys can see it. We'll link all this information down below. But this Bible right here is the NIV Zondervan Study Bible, and so I've elevated my game. This is not what I started off with, but this is what I use primarily now. I like to read out of a lot of different translations. So like I use the Bible app quite a bit. That's the YouVersion Bible app. It's important that I say which one because there are other Bible apps and does not always mean that they're Christian Bibles. I just want to preface that. So just make sure that whatever one you're reading out of is a Christian Bible because it could be of different beliefs. So I use the YouVersion Bible app, and they have a compare feature on that app, which allows me to compare the different verses. So I tend to read verses in multiple translations. So I will read it in Amplified, I will read it in NIV, I will read it in
the Message.
I don't really care for the Message that much.
So I read the Message. I don't read the Message first. That's like one of the last versions or translations that I read it in, because there's a lot of extra context in the Message version, but sometimes it gives you that extra context to understand what exactly they're talking about. But just be careful with the Message, because they add on a lot of extra words and things.
It's more of a paraphrase.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's more of a paraphrase, and so it's a little...
You missed some things there.
Yeah. So these are just translations that we're talking about here. So I also read New American Standard Bible. So I'll just read off some of them. So New American Standard Bible, I like reading from that translation a lot. New King James Version, I like reading from that too. Now I like to actually go back and forth, because some verses I've memorized, I choose to memorize in New King James, because that's the way I heard those verses. That's how I heard them. So like my mom might use, most of the time when she's quoting different scriptures, it's New King James. And Amplified, I love Amplified, American Standard Version, Contemporary English Version. There's a lot. So you just find whichever one, and I just use the compare feature on the YouVersion Bible app, and I go between the different comparison of translations for that verse to dig in a little bit deeper and get better understanding. I mean, these are just kind of like, there's so many other resources, but that's one of them. Another one that I love, and I got hip to this from my grandfather. This is my systematic theology book, and I use this quite a bit. And I like recommend everyone to like invest in this. Like, even if you're not even a person who's like reading the Bible all the time, I'm sure there are just like general questions that you may have, and this kind of answers or gives you at least the roadmap to find the answers. Like, you want to know about angels, there's a section on angels. You want to know about like the doctrines, like what is salvation, like just like the basic things that are like tenets of our faith. That's with this systematic theology book. So this is Grudem's systematic theology book, and I prefer this one. This is by Wayne Grudem, and it's awesome. It's thick and it's big, and I use it all the time. It's just a great resource. So that's one of them. And then, what else do you have, Lex? I know you have some resources that you like too.
Another good resource is Understanding the Bible in 15 Minutes. This one is by Daryl. And this one is a really good resource as well, because this one just answers a lot of like common questions, like who was the Bible written for? When was it written? Just a lot of like common questions. What happened between the Old Testament and New Testament? What will I find in the prophets? So just a lot of questions that you may, answers that you may have questions to, you might find it here. So this is a really good resource that I found that I like.
Another one that I really enjoyed and I started using pretty early on, because I just wanted to make sure that I understood what I was reading, and I'm very like methodical. And so when I'm reading the Bible, I like have to have a plan. It's just like if you were reading for a class and you were like creating yourself like a study guide for yourself. That's my approach to reading the Bible. I like to write things out so that I know what I'm reading and understand. So this book right here it's called Women of the Word, and it's by Jen Wilkin. It does not have to be read it's not only for women. It doesn't even really say anything specific to like women, to gender. But it's just, she just wrote it geared towards women for whatever reason. But it's a really good book, and it actually just tells you step by step how to read the word with your heart and your mind. So it's not just a heart thing. It's not just a feeling thing. You can read it analytically so that you have deeper understanding. So this one right here is gold. I mean, it literally tells you how to outline verses, how to meditate on the verse, how to like just dive in. It is really, really, really good book. Just a really great resource. So this is just like a quick little video that we figured we would share with you all, because we're always talking about Bible verses and scriptures, and we know that it is very intimidating because it was for us as well. And we just decided, we wanted to share it with you all so that you had a deeper level of understanding.
And so it's not as overwhelming.
Yes, exactly.
So thank you for tuning in. And go ahead.
So you will see us and hear from us on the next one. Bye, you guys.
Bye.